To do that, I'm going to introduce one of my favourite speakers and now veteran touring around Australia and New Zealand after his fourth tour site. I'd like you to welcome our Director of Content and Research, Kyle Lacey. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you.
There's your slide.
How are we doing? We doing good? So I'm going to give you a brief overview of what we do at ExactTarget, at least in my team. I have 10 people in Indianapolis, Indiana, and all we do is consumer research, client research, trends research, everything we can possibly get our hands on to try to keep everybody up to date in regards to trends, right? That's everything from Google Glass to phablets to the Samsung tablet that's now 20 inches, right, which is completely ridiculous. It's like carrying around a TV when you're walking on the street. But we want to talk about what's next, right? And all the research that we do and a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today has to do with what's next. What is going to happen in the future? What are people going to be doing when cars can drive themselves? All these cool things, right, that matter. And I've always been trying to figure out how to say it because it stresses me out. Everything that we talk about stresses me out because things change so drastically that it's just really hard to describe. Does anybody know Louis C.K., the comedian? Okay? If you don't, if there's one thing you take away from my presentation, you need to go to Louis C.K. and watch him on YouTube, as many videos that you can find. Just don't do it right now because you'll break the Wi-Fi and you need to listen to this presentation. But I have a quick video that kind of describes what I'm trying to say, and Louis is telling it.
Because when I read things like the foundations of capitalism are shattering, I'm like, maybe we need that. Maybe we need some time where we're walking around with a donkey with pots clanging on the sides.
You think that would just bring us back to reality?
Yeah, because everything is amazing right now and nobody's happy. Like, in my lifetime, the changes in the world have been incredible. When I was a kid, we had a rotary phone. We had a phone that you had to stand next to. And you realize how primitive, you're making sparks in a phone, and you actually would hate people with zeros in their numbers because it was more like, oh, this guy's got 2 zeros, screw that guy, why do I want to... Yeah. And then if they called and you weren't home, the phone would just ring lonely by itself. And then if you wanted money, you had to go in the bank for when it was open for like 3 hours. You had to stand in line, write yourself a check like an idiot. And then when you ran out of money, you just go, well, I can't do any more things now.
Right.
I can't do any more things.
That's it, yeah.
That was it. And even if you had a credit card, the guy would go, ugh, and he'd bring out this whole shunk, and he'd write,
yes.
You'd have to call the president to see if you have any money. And
it's all true, kids. You had to call the president, yeah. It was ridiculous.
Yes.
Do you feel that we now, in the 21st century, we take technology for granted?
Well, yeah, because now we live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots that don't care, because this is what people are like now. They got their phone, and they're like, it won't... Give it a second. It's going to space. Can you give it a second to get back from space? Is the speed of light too slow for you? Yeah. I was on an airplane, and there was internet, high-speed internet on the airplane. That's the newest thing that I know exists. And I'm sitting on the plane, and they go, open up your laptop. You can go on the internet. And it's fast, and I'm watching YouTube clips. I'm in an airplane. And then it breaks down. And they apologize, the internet's not working. The guy next to me goes, this is bull. Like, how quickly the world owes him something he knew existed only 10 seconds ago.
Right.
So, who feels like that, right? Can we give it a round? Like, he pretty much describes everything I deal with on a daily basis as a marketer. So when we're talking about these trends and we're talking about what's next, it is fun to always talk about these things that are happening and all these tools that we're going to use in the future, but we also have to remember what's now. And when I say what's now, it's what we've been talking about this entire morning. It's the data around the consumer. What's your consumer using now? What technology are they using now? If they're using Google Glass, you should probably think about it, right? Which is probably not the case, but it's the future, right? What are they doing now? What's the data telling you now? So the trends have to do with the future, but also keep that in mind when we're talking about this strategy, at least when you're building your strategy for the future. So the first trend is data equals relevance. And I usually describe data equals relevance We all know that, and I'm not going to talk about small data or big data, but it's really this. It's one of my favorite quotes. What you will see with rapid data and social sharing is the death of the average and the error of you. Businesses will be able to truly serve the individual. And I think that what that is saying is that we have to go back to the day where I could walk into a store, they knew my name, they knew exactly what I bought yesterday, they have the cart already filled out, and they are going to give it to me, right? They have to know me personally, and I think we're getting to the point where technology can actually do that. So when we're talking about this, creative is also important. So there's two types of marketing data that I talk about when I'm usually doing a trends presentation. Number one is empathy, and number two is perspective taking. And empathy is the idea that we have to understand the emotional state or feelings of the consumer. We have to. Mad Men, we're really good at that. You're going to hear Mad Men about 90 times today because we're obsessed with it, and I love it. And the idea of a 3-martini lunch, while probably not very productive, seems cool to me, and I've never actually experienced it. Maybe I'll try it today. I have no idea. They were really good at empathy, and here's some examples of that. These are actual examples of advertising that was done in the 60s. Think of her as your mother. This is American Airlines poster, which I get the point of the attendant taking care of you as your mom, but she's hot, so it's just kind of weird. Face the facts. When tempted to overindulge, reach for a Lucky instead. So apparently sprinters smoked after they ran. The face is America. The special sparkle is Canada Dry, which I have no idea what that means, but it is a fun couple on a beach pouring Canada Dry all over themselves, which take that as you will. But it was feeding on the emotional state of the consumer. The second part of it, which we're dealing with now, is perspective taking, which is cognitive and analytical. It's understanding someone's interests and behavior. I describe that a lot with Amazon, and I know sometimes you guys have problems getting Amazon stuff to ship here, right? So I'm going to just explain this because I use Amazon a couple times in this presentation, that there will come a day where they're here, where distribution networks are here, and you will be getting things within a 24-hour period of time for free, right? So cognitive and analytical, we call it the Amazon effect, which is predictive intelligence, which we'll talk about as a trend later on. But it's basically the idea that I buy a book, Amazon sends me an email, and I have a complete bookshelf of books that I will never read because apparently Amazon knows me better than I know myself, right? And I just buy them all the time because, well, Amazon's recommending them to me. Maybe I should buy them, right? But it's about using that in a better way. So when we're talking about empathy, it's important that we are understanding the emotional state of the consumer, but we're also taking in that cognitive element. And it's only going to get better over time as machines get better, as intelligence gets better, when we start developing more of this technology. So when we're talking about trends, the second one is moments matter. And you're going to see this a couple times. I actually full disclaimer, I stole this idea from Jeff Rohr's. And he will be presenting it later on today as well. But moments matter means this. Has anybody seen this picture? Anybody? So this is what's called dogs underwater, as you can tell. This is from a photographer out in California. His name's Seth Castile. And he took the last bit of money that he had, and he bought a digital underwater camera. And he went, and he was trying to figure out, okay, what the hell do I do now with an underwater digital camera now that I bought it? And he actually took a picture of one of his dogs jumping into a pool. Just took it, I think it was the one, I have no idea what kind of dog that is, but it's the bug-eyed one on the left, bottom left. Took a picture of it, put it online. His friends saw it, and they were like, wow, that's crazy. Put it on Reddit. It went viral overnight. He sold thousands of photos of this dog. And what do you think he does now? Anybody want to guess? He takes pictures of dogs underwater. That's all he does. And it's a coffee table book, and you can buy it and put it on your coffee table, and it's fun. Anybody? I was talking to my wife the other day, and I was like, I really want to take our cat and do cats underwater. And she didn't think that was very funny. But I'm more of a dog person. But what Seth took advantage of was a moment in time. This is a moment that happens constantly, right? Dogs love water. Took advantage of that moment and made it work for his brand. Same thing applies to technology and data and how we look at the customer life cycle. You've seen this 9 billion different times. This is just what I use. This is what a customer walks through when they're interacting with your brand, right? Awareness, evaluation, purchase usage, repurchase advocacy. And every point along that life cycle is a different technology, person, piece of content, every single thing that we're doing as a brand. And this changes for every single consumer in your database. Every single time they interact with you. So think about that for 2 seconds. If you have 100 consumers and they're interacting with you 3 or 4 times, and content and the way that they interact with you based off technology changes every time, that's a lot of data, that's a lot of content, that's a lot in general. But as brands, we have to move to the point where we're using data, we're using content, we're using technology to create this system for every single consumer so they are communicating with us the way they want to, right? Not the way we think they need to. There's a huge difference between those two things. So moments truly matter when we're talking about technology and we're talking about at least underwater dogs and cats, which I think that would be a great book together in general. You throw both of them in the water at the same time and see what happens. Number 3 is connect to consumers. I have a confession. Who has an iPhone in here? Probably some of them, quite a bit. What about an Android? Who has switched from an iPhone to an Android? Okay. Go with me here, you guys. You know what I'm talking about. So I recently switched. I switched phones, and so I went from an iPhone, and I went to a phablet. And for those of you that don't know, a phablet is something that looks like a mini iPad, but is actually a phone that you use as a phone, and it looks ridiculous when you're using it. But it's big. It's a big phone. And now I switched to an Android device. And 3 days in, I was sitting on my couch, and my wife came in and said, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm sitting there using this phone. I'm like, I want it to do what my iPhone did. And I was depressed, literally depressed. Like a loved one had died in my life. And she goes, "You need to get over it because it's a phone." And I sat there and I was like, "That's why I married you. You're right. You're a beautiful woman." But the problem is that an operating system did what? Freaked me out. And it's the same thing. I know purists are going to be like, "No, the design's better, blah, blah, blah." It's icons on a phone that you use to communicate with people, right? It's the same thing. But it's unbelievable how much a phone disrupted me when I switched. And I'm happy now. I think a lot of people wonder. I actually like the Android operating system. But we have to remember that that's what all of us are like now. And when we did our research, we found that between all consumers on average use their phone between 3 and 4 hours a day. Probably the majority of them were playing Candy Crush or some weird game that everybody does. But we have to remember that mobility is extremely important, and that's one of the major trends throughout this entire presentation, and that it is mobility. 91% of consumers indicated that access to content across all devices was important. So it does matter that when you are creating content, when we're talking about personalized content, it doesn't matter, well, it does matter that the past buying behavior is put in there, but it's also what device they're using to look at that content that's important, right? That's also a data point. Responsive design is extremely important in this whole thing. But content being accessed across every device, everything that the consumer is using is important. 51% of Australian consumers search on their smartphone every day for everything. We know that when somebody walks into your store or calls you, they're probably already 70% of the way through the sales cycle. They already know what they want. Has anybody heard of showrooming? Okay, it's hit or miss here on showrooming. Showrooming is basically where I walk into a store, I try on shoes, I sit there in front of the person and order the shoes online, and they're shipped to me, and they're sitting right in front of me because I probably got them for like 10% cheaper. But a lot of that is happening now. A lot of that is consumers going into stores, looking and trying on things, and then leaving and then buying them online. It's happening. It's more prevalent in the States, but it is happening more often, right? So we have to remember that. 1 in 3 consumers use their mobile phone to research products in store. So it's important to remember that where the person is at is also what matters when it comes to content and mobility. 94% of Australians have researched a product or a service on their phone. So we get the point, right? We are using our phone constantly. That is a trend, and it will never die, and it won't die. Everything is becoming more mobile, and we have to remember that when we're talking to the consumer. So with that, email is mobile. Responsive design is extremely important. For those of you that don't know what responsive design is, it just means that the content, the web, the email, everything you're sending out is changing based off of the environment the consumer is using. So if I'm reading your email on my phablet, and then I read it on my old iPhone, it should change based off of those screen sizes, so I don't have to pinch to read the content. So no pinching is a good rule of thumb. Just don't go to your design team and be like, I need to make sure our website, that people aren't pinching it when they're reading it, because they'll probably hit you in the face, honestly. So just remember that if you are pinching content, it means that it's not designed the right way. So email is mobile. When we sent 1 billion digital messages on Cyber Monday in the States, many of our clients experienced mobile open rates exceeding 80%, and mainly because they were traveling, they were on the go, but mostly that is when mobile phone usage is at its peak between the times of 8 and 5 p.m., because they're using it on the go. Desktop and tablets go up after 5 p.m. Between 5 and 10 p.m. is the main source of usage for tablets in terms of time. So with the future of mobility, with the connected consumer, we also have to remember the inbox. And I want to invite up Teo Noel from Return Path, which is a great partner of ours, to talk about the future of the inbox. So give it up.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Teo, and the Regional Director for Return Path. Just before I jump in, I just have a quick question. How many here have just one email address? Just a show of hand, one email address. Who's got 2 email addresses? 3 email addresses. Hey, we get there. 4 email addresses. Or 5, 6, 7. I've seen people having half a dozen or a dozen email addresses. Simply because our life is becoming more and more complex. Because the inbox of the future is different. Because today, as the inbox evolves, we marketers need to make sure that we understand what is going on in the world around us. Once upon a time, a very long time ago, inbox was designed for one thing, and we were using it for one thing and one thing only, to read and send email. But that was a long time ago, 2010. It was that time where a lot of people understood that there was something else that could be done out of our inboxes. People have changed. People have changed. Marketers have understood that it was becoming more and more interesting what we could do with our inboxes. And because we, marketers, consumers, want more, we use our inboxes for a lot of things. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails are coming into our world every morning. So as a result of it, unfortunately, there's too much chaos. Chaos that we find hard to manage on a day-to-day basis. On the morning, I spend my first 20 minutes just clearing things, deleting hundreds and hundreds of messages because it's just overflow. So the inbox of tomorrow needs to change. The days are gone where we need to we need to understand clearly how we're going to manage that inbox. So we created tools to make our life easier. From a marketer point of view, from a professional point of view, we have created tools to make that inbox more user-friendly. So in a sense, we are transforming our inbox into a shopping engine, for example. Mobi enables you to manage all your purchases. It's going to file them, it's going to order and manage all your receipts, give you even a Motley email addresses, so you keep your privacy and no one knows who you are. Slice will take all your purchases, track your shipment, understand and organize your receipts, so you know what to do. And it also understands who you are so well that next time you are looking for a product, it will tell you when it is and where it is to buy it the cheapest. But as we receive more, we want a clutter-free environment. We want to use our inbox to have better ways to unsubscribe. Unsubscriber, for example, enable you on a click and a drag to manage your unsubscribe forever. It will take care of it for you. You don't have to try to find where the button is. Maelstrom. It's going to help you sorting all your emails, put them together, put them in an order that makes sense for you, and it's going to clean your inbox faster. So if every morning you delete that chunk, it will do it for you, once and for good. Inbox pause enable you to think about and give you your productivity back. It's giving you the opportunity to sit down, turn off your email, breaks that you need in order to be productive. Organizer turns on for you automatically, will sort all your daily deals, will put them in one area, will put all your receipts, put them in another folder. So it makes your life more streamlined and simpler to manage. In essence, that is what Gmail has done as well. It has listened to its customer and said, oh, wow, there's too much in my inbox. Sort it for me. That's what they did. Yahoo followed up very quickly after that. But, you know, on our day-to-day, on a professional level, we've got a serious problem. We've got clutter as well. So we transformed our inbox into a personal assistant. Tempo, for example, enables you to put, when you've got meetings, it's going to put the business cards of all your clients, where you're going, how you're going, so it's going to make your arrival to your next meeting more simpler. Boomerang allows you to, in a sense, simply select your task, send your reminders, prepare your email, send your email at the time you decided to. AirSeed is a bit like Motley Bunch. It's actually going to sort all your deliveries, but more importantly, and I think it's quite cool, is the fact that it recognizes when you got a check-in email for your next Qantas flight, and it will automatically check you in. Your little personal assistant. But changes are upon us, and as marketers, we need to understand better what our customers are doing. So 3 things can really help us today make an informed decision about what the inbox of tomorrow is. First of all, we need to know who our real competition is inside that inbox. We need to understand who the competitor is and what are we competing against. The chaos of that inbox is not going away. All that information is just under the surface, and we, as marketers, need to understand how we're going to leverage it. But today, already, you can really simply understand what is the percentage of your customers who you share with any other senders. So you, your competitor, in essence, understanding what is your inbox share of wallet. We can also help you understand the size of your list compared to any other senders into your customer's inbox. But as we spoke about earlier on, it's about relevancy. It is about that one-to-one relationship that you can have. It is about delivering email marketing that people love. But as we all know, customers' love is fickle. They might choose to read your email this morning, might decide to ignore you, might actually prefer reading your competitor's email, or actually, when Qantas email is sent, they actually don't look at you and don't look at your competitor. They just prefer the Qantas email. So what you can do today is that you can understand better the percentage of customers that read your message, read your competitor's message, or read none of them, and also when they are ignoring you, when they are not listening to your communications. The third point is about protecting your brand, your customers, and revenue. Because when you think about it, inbox is just more than just marketing messages. There is a lot of our private life which is held in that inbox. There is your password, there is your statement, there is your banking, there is information that the bad guy actually will try to do everything they can to get access to. But they will lure your client by abusing the trust they have on your brand. They will send those phishing attacks, spamming attacks, to try to leverage your brand to steal your customers away. But there is a good news. You can do something about it. Today, you can understand if, first of all, you have a problem, if your brand is being abused. You can quantify the size of it. And finally, you can effectively block anyone who pretends to be you. So, voila, it's quite simple. Today, as marketer, you can have 3 takeaways. The first one is that you can gain visibility on who's inside the inbox with you. understand what the share of wallet you have access to. You can learn about your customer preferences, learn about your like-minded businesses, what works for them, what works for your competitor, leverage that information to make something out of it to be more relevant to your customer. And finally, be protected, protecting your brand and your customer's privacy by ensuring that only you send the emails that your customer wants. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. So what's important about all this is that we realize that these tools are available and they'll become increasingly more available. And with email and with mobile and with all these things, I think that location is also extremely important to what we do. Location, you remember Foursquare and all that kind of creepy stuff where you check in and everybody's like, hey, I'm glad you're there. I'm going to go to your house and break in and all that stuff. I think it's coming back. I think we're seeing a resurgence of location-based stuff. And my favorite one, which thank God you guys have it here, we were in Auckland and I was sitting in the airport waiting it to tell me that the cars were near, and there were no cars anywhere near. Who's familiar with Uber? All right, so everybody's familiar pretty much. For those of you who aren't prepared to have your lives changed, this is basically a black car service where I can stand out front of my hotel, tell it to pick me up. It will send me a picture of the driver, the phone number. It will text me when the car is near. The driver will call me just in case the pin location wasn't right. I'll get in the car, tell them where I'm going. They'll have bottled water sitting there and like little candies sometimes, depending on what driver you get. And it will take me to my place. I will get out, and it will charge me all through the mobile app. I'll rate the driver, and it's all seamless throughout the mobile app. It's about 10% more expensive than taxis. That might change based off of your guys' headlines this morning. I think it's a 30% taxi rate hike, I think that what I saw today. But it's basically a black car service that's the experience is completely built through the mobile phone. And people use it constantly. In the States, it's pretty prevalent. But there are some where the taxi unions are like, screw you, Uber, and they don't have it in the city. But they're creating an experience for the customer that's completely mobile. And even product-wise, it's becoming even more mobile for a lot of consumers. PayPal is another example. Derek and I tested this at Nook, which is across the street from our office. This is where you can check in to Nook, and you can pay for your beverage or flat white. I am an American who orders flat white. I would just like to tell all of you. And the best flat white I ever had was this morning in Melbourne, so thank you all for bestowing upon me your coffee greatness. So actually, you can pay, and it actually shows your picture on the computer for the employee. They click which person you are, and it's all done through the mobile app. PayPal is rolling this out globally at the moment, right? This is just a very cool way to go about doing things. So as this stuff becomes more mobile, consumers are also wanting to become more mobile with their products and when they're ordering services. This is not a joke. You guys are sitting there probably going, this is crazy. You saw the 60 Minutes interview probably where Jeff Bezos was on there talking about this drone thing, and I was watching it going, this is crazy. There's no way. And this is actually happening. Like Sydney, there's a company that just it's working on regulations getting passed to use drones in Sydney. Amazon is getting it passed in America. Can you imagine the chaos in America where there's like 1 million guns per household when all these, like, gotta shoot down that's my American voice. Gotta shoot down the drone, right? I gotta get my watch or something that they ordered before. But imagine what's going to happen when this actually changes and actually works the right way. When I can order something and it is delivered to me in 30 minutes via a drone. It's pretty crazy. Now, it might not look like that. They have them. But it's just a matter of time before these things start changing. This was recently launched in the States, I think last week. This is basically where you can scan food products and order it via Amazon from your kitchen. And I was going to show the video, but it was a bunch of just families in their kitchen like going, oh, we're out of milk, we need to scan. So you get the point. But they scan it and it's delivered to your home same day by Amazon. Groceries. So we're all becoming really lazy in general, but this is just an idea. This is just showing you. They also have an app where I can scan a UPC code of like a barbecue or something, right? And I can actually order it on Amazon and it's shipped to me through the in-store environment, right? So they're changing the way that we're experiencing things, but also there's other brands that are changing the way they're interacting with consumers within their mobile app. So I want to show you a video of a shoe store actually called Meat Pack out of Guatemala. Meat Pack, where are you? We lose Meat Pack? I can explain it. So basically, when we're getting the video up, it's basically a mobile app where the audience of the mobile app can interact with the brand. So they're walking through a store, and they get to the store. So it's a shoe store, right? And they're in a Nike shoe store. There we go.
There he is. He's getting a message. There's a promotion for Meatpack. I think so. Yeah, we got him. Sick bubble gum!
Meatpack is the trendiest shoe store in Guatemala, a brand known for its edgy, cutting style and a store known for its unique discounts in limited edition kicks including brands like Adidas, Nike and Reebok. An icon for the sneakerhead subculture with over 60,000 fans on their fan page in less than a year. They needed to launch a new promotion to live up to their hardcore fans, an innovative way to earn your discount. We created Hijack, an enhancement for the official Meatpack app used by our customers. Using GPS tracking technology that marks every competitor's store of the brand sold at Meatpack. So every time one of our sneakerheads enters one of the stores, it triggers a special notice with a promotion. Hijack sends an alert to the person's mobile with a discount that starts at 99% and decreases by 1% every second that goes by, making the countdown stop until you reach our store. More than 600 customers were hijacked from the competitors in a week. One customer, Pedro Rodriguez, got a record-breaking 89% discount. This is the first promo campaign that started the sale in the competitors' stores.
Other than the fact that I would never buy shoes from a company called Meatpack, and there's probably not cheerleaders and DJs in every single one of their stores. It's pretty cool, right? They had to have an audience, though, which Jeff's going to talk about later today, in order to tap that audience within the app, but they're using GPS tracking technology in a cool way, which leads to the fifth trend, and we got one more and then we're done, which is brand personalization. And there's two forms of brand personalization: predictive intelligence, which is exact target driven, and then egonomics, which is a term coined by a woman named Faith Popcorn. And that's her real name, believe me. We'll get to egonomics later. But predictive intelligence is basically understanding someone's behavior, guiding them through a sales process, and then selling them things based off of that behavior. 41% of consumers buy more from retailers who send personalized email based on past buying behaviors. So we know that, right? We've been testing that constantly now. But I'm going to give you an example of this. This is called Fab Lab by CoverGirl. It's a website. It's a one-click sign-on. You can sign in via Facebook, and it says, we're going to give us your email, and then we're going to take your basic profile information. And basically that means that they're going to take all of your data off your Facebook profile. When they say basic, it's not really that basic. And then you can also sign up via email, right? So you go here, you can upload a photo, you can use your webcam, you can actually select a model if you want to. And then it takes you through these different, well, first, I did it for you. Take a photo of myself instead of using the model. It traces your face, and then it takes you through different questions. Tonal range, skin shade, skin undertone, eye color, hair color, age range. And while you're doing this, what is the system doing in the background? It's applying everything that I'm answering to my ID in the database, right? So that it can then do what? It can recommend products to me. Clean whipped cream foundation, clean liquid makeup, and Simply Ageless foundation. And then it gives you ratings, right? If I add those to a cart and I leave, what happens? They trigger an email that says, Kyle, you forgot to buy your Simply Ageless foundation. You probably need to buy it. What happens if I buy it? Sending me an e-receipt with other recommended products within that e-receipt, that email receipt. But the coolest thing about this website is that you can actually go try on the makeup on the site. And you can zoom in, you can do before and after, just in case you didn't apply the foundation in the right way. And you can tell that I did not answer those questions right because I look like a psycho. So, what's interesting is that nobody really wants to try on makeup via a computer screen, right? That's just not what they want to do. Nobody wants to do that. But why do they make this? Why did they make this and launch this? Because it was interactive, but it allowed them to make it interactive to gather data, right, about that consumer, about me who is answering these questions to buy makeup from them. Flamed out shadow pots, for instance, which I have no idea what that is. It sounds really crazy, to be honest with you. In a perfect world, what would happen when I go to the CoverGirl website? The entire website would change, content would change, based off of how I interacted with the app and my past buying behavior with CoverGirl. And we're getting there, right? That's where technology is going. 12 to 25% increase in sales if the transactional message includes personalized product recommendations. 12 to 25% lift if you recommend products to that person. And the only way that you can recommend products is if you're tracking data and managing it the right way. Number 2 is egonomics, which of course, faith popcorn. To offset a depersonalized society, consumers crave recognition of their individuality. I think a lot of times when we're talking about technology and we're talking about these devices and people have 1, 2, 3 phones and they're using tablets and they're in front of a computer all day and blah, 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 we are becoming more depersonalized, honestly. So we're craving more recognition from people as well as brands. So we have to remember that. This is the best example that I've ever found that Derek actually led me on. This is where you can, this is a couple years ago, I think, where you could personalize a Coke can and send it to a friend. You could personalize it. You could personalize. Selfie is another example of that, right? Who's taken a selfie in here in the last 12 hours? All of you are lying, because I know you have. Even if you accidentally switched the camera and took a picture on accident, you took a selfie, right? So it's this personalization of society because of technology. And that leads to the last trend, which is connected products, which we talk a lot about at the Marketing Cloud, because connected products are important. And my favorite one is the Adidas Me Coach. Has anybody seen the Me Coach? MI Coach. It's a new product from Adidas. I'm not sure if they've released it yet, but it's basically a soccer ball, a shoe, different things you can wear, and it will track how you play football or soccer. Imagine the power of coaches when they put this to all their players and they're tracking how their players interact with that device. A lot of quantified self, which is basically a trend that where us as humans want to take our actions and create data points so that we can be better at what we do. A little Terminator-esque, but still. It's the quantified self. It's the idea that we can be better using those products. And we're not necessarily saying that you need to go get a smart toothbrush or you need to go buy a soccer ball that talks to you or all these different things that are happening. It's just showing you that brands are becoming more in tune with the idea that they have to be better at serving the customer, not selling them. So something that we say at ExactTarget is serving is the new selling. You have to take products. You think Adidas wants to become a technology company. Doubtful, in my opinion. What they want to do is they want to be more helpful so the consumer becomes more brand loyal. So in that, data always equals relevance and data always beats opinions. We could sit in a boardroom all day and try to figure out what message, via what channel we want to send somebody. Do we want to put a QR code on something? And by the way, don't ever put a QR code on a billboard, ever. There's a company in Indianapolis that has a QR code on this billboard on our freeway, and it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. You can't even scan it. Can you imagine people driving trying to scan a QR code? It's just so stupid. So data always beats opinions. You have the data to make the best strategic decisions possible for your brand. You just have to use it the right way. And it has to do with the life cycle and tracking the life cycle and tracking the technology within it. And we need to get there. So my favorite quote that I end on is actually I heard it in Hunter Valley last year. A guy named David Walmsley, who's the head of multi-channel for Marks & Spencer. We must move from numbers keeping score to numbers that drive better actions. And as marketers, you have to get better at this. We all have to get better at this. We have to be more numbers driven than we just increased Facebook fans by 20%. Great, right? What's past that? How is that more strategic in your way of thinking? So with these trends, we have to remember that. And that's ultimately what we are here to help you do, is to make better decisions with data so you're actually driving better actions within your company. So thank you, guys. I'm going to give it back to Derek.